I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. Thanks for coming back this week after last week's technology debacle and, beautiful stoppage of the workflow from Spirit for us to take a big pause and look into what it is we were up to and really a call to a reprieve, which was beautiful and much needed. And here we are back again. And, that's also what's beautiful. And sometimes we need to be down and take a look and do something different and shake things up. And then sometimes we're back at it. And so this week we are dropping in to talk about what is really a hot issue. It's a hot issue around the online internet community. And, I think in general, there are variations of this that happen quite a bit. And, I've been on many sides of this coin. Early in my career, I was I like to think that I was never the copier of others' works, but I certainly was modeled many things after many other people's works. And we've talked about this on this show a couple different times. I've mentioned it various places in reference to distinguishing between what is essence and what is not and kind of how you know. And then Liz D'Alto and I had a great conversation about it several weeks ago. And so this week I am teaching throat chakra in Magic School, and of course, the throat chakra is all about speaking truth and being in integrity and communication and all of those, the marriage of our inner world and our outer world. And so, of course, as we teach, we activate the places in our lives that are up for clearing around those things. And so I woke up this morning. Actually, I was in ceremony all weekend. And I had some beautiful explorations around integrity that those were not my intention going in, but just ended up being the things that surfaced. And I'll share some of those, hot off the presses insights with all of you because they beautifully illuminate this discussion. And again, I wasn't sure that's what I was going to talk about this morning, but I woke up and I started to read some emails and I saw a couple of different posts from the same woman who's a woman who's been in and around my work for a while, who's, I wouldn't say closely connected to me personally, but, intimately connected and familiar with my work. And I saw that she had a new offering that looked almost identical to the Soulful Money Medicine offering that I just put out. And then in another group, I saw that she had written what appeared to me to be a series of kind of disjointed sentences that didn't really say anything, but each of the sentences was something that I say, like very particular specific words that didn't actually go together, but it was obvious. It was obvious to me because the words that come from me, the way they're put together are, language for me really is part of my genius, and it's part of how my essence paints and creates in the world. And so I know the energetics of my words, and I know where they come from, and I know when I see them again. And thank you, Viv, for pointing that out to me, because my mind had a little bit of like, well, I mean, they're words. Does anyone own words? But yet there's this huge trigger in my system when I see them. And when Viv pointed that out to me about this energetic signature, I was like, yeah, those are my babies right there. Like, for sure. They came right off of something that I wrote. And so I got curious, right? I got curious in the midst of the trigger. And, so I reached out to a group that I'm part of with some very wise women who are very successful online marketers, as well as depth-filled visionaries and attorneys and, just all kinds of deeply soulful business women, and said, okay, here's the deal. What do you guys know? What do you have for me? And most of them are not yet available to counsel, which is why we're going to talk about it here, because I feel like, well, then obviously it's medicine for us here. And, and in these conversations in the past, when I've heard women ask about them or when I've seen advice given, what typically happens is there's some kind of sentiment, which many of you are beautifully posting in the tribe for me. And I so appreciate that. Like, I just love the love that you send to me, and my ego appreciates the validation. And I just want to open this conversation by saying that it's easy to align with me because I have the sword, right? I have the platform. I have the righteousness. You've been following me, so you have an attachment to being right. And that's just a recipe for us to be cautious, right? So that as we're looking into this, we don't turn our sister into a witch or, bring her up on the gallows and say, wrong, bad, you, not me, because we've done that. We've done that to each other so many times. And so I preface that by saying, sister, dear sister who is playing in this dance with me, I see you, I am you, I love you. And that is why we're having this conversation. So thank you for catalyzing it. And this is not about, making you wrong or hurting you. This is about looking into the depth of, is this hurting all of us? Because that's what I hear when this conversation comes up. The go-to is like, well, your work is really yours and nobody can replicate it. So you can rest in knowing that, you're going to be fine either way. And for me, it's like, I already know that I'm fine either way. And it's not about, I'm not concerned that she's going to take some of my clients or that, she's going to get something from me by not doing as much work as I do or something like that, So it caused me to have to really look into, like, what is this giant fire that is coursing through my system that is a huge fuck no to this practice, right? What is that? If it's not about me worrying about her getting something, I wonder what else this is, And I wonder if we're doing a service to each other when we say, I'm going to let this pass and I'm not going to make a big deal of it, because it happens and I'm still whole. And so fine. So that's the discussion today. That's the discussion. And we're going to look at it from all sides. Can you really steal someone's work? And how do you know if you're in integrity or not? And, I think many times when this happens, it's, it's not even conscious, right? So stuff is in the field and, you're just picking up on things that are already in the field, even though they're not actually yours. And, and then sometimes we do it consciously. And I forgive us for when we do that, right? I forgive us for when we're so scared to put something out, or we're so desperate, or we've worked on something for 6 months and it still isn't coming together. And then we see a version of it outside of us that is together. And we're like, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to say. That's what I was trying to say. And I'm going to say it just like she says it, right? Which is still not you putting on your own light bulb, which is the problem. Yeah. So Let's start with a definition of integrity. On the one hand, we know what it means, but I love the etymology of words because there's so much under the energetics. So integrity is the state of being whole and undivided. The state of being whole and undivided. And also I'm a big proponent of systems, right? That everything is a system within a system within a system. So, you as a sister in this collective that we are building, you are an individual system. And then within your system, you have an energy system, and then you have a chakra system, and then you have a cellular system, right? And then outside of you, you have the collective that is our sisterhood. And then we have the collective that is our, our city, our state, our country, our planet, right? The collective of our galaxy. So, it's important to be looking at how those systems are functioning within the systems. And when we start to talk about integrity, a compromise in the integrity of one part of any of the parts of the system necessarily compromises the integrity of all the rest of the systems, right? So that can be a little mind trippy, right? Like, oh shit, if I don't get it perfect, I'm compromising the integrity of the galaxy. Yes, and the further you move out in the systems, the less, that compromise affects things. And the closer you are to it, the more it affects things. So in your internal system, when you're not doing your own work and there's a breach in your integrity, that has the most impact on you, right? It has the most impact on how you feel inside and the choices that you're making and what you think about yourself and what you're available for creating or doing from that space, So, always the biggest reason to be in integrity is because it feels a lot better in your system when you are. And I want to clarify that because I think a lot of us imagine that being fully in integrity means you have to know everything and do everything right. You have to know everything and do everything right and do everything perfectly and not make any mistakes and not step on anyone's toes. And if we view it like that, it will quickly put us into paralysis, right? And so many of you, have been diving into soulful money medicine with me and asking these deep questions like, I get the whole idea of needing to have my essence birthed and needing to come, to offer myself from that place, but I'm not there yet. And I also have to make some money. And so, I can feel the tenderness of like, oh my God, is this discussion about me? And have I done it wrong? And like, maybe that means I shouldn't offer it. The answer is no. That is not at all what I'm saying. Okay, hold on. What I am saying is that being in integrity can be saying, I'm going to offer this program and it's as clear as I can get right now. It's not perfect, but it's mostly me, right? Or it's partly me, or I feel really excited about offering this, which is a glimpse into what I know about myself so far, whether we're saying that or encoding it in the information, whether we're adding it to the delivery of the program, that is in integrity. My throat has some things to say about all of this. I'm going to take a drink and catch a breath as the fires burn their way through. You got to love it. Yep. So, and part of what that takes, that level of integrity, is this fierce knowing of yourself. You have to be deeply doing your own work. I can't hold your integrity for you. I can't be the arbiter of what's right and wrong. I can't hold it for this is you, this is not you, right? Because that necessarily creates a feedback loop that would pull both of us out of our integrity. I've had many lifetimes where I've done that. I've been exploring integrity for a long, long time on my soul path. And I've lived all the sides of that coin. I've been the if you followed, you've heard many of my lives mentioned here, but, I've been the puritanical, religious community leader who destroyed people who questioned my authority and my structure and my rule system. I've been the religious cardinal that burned women at the stake and, put them into dungeons for questioning the authority of the church. And when I was in those lifetimes, I believed that was true. I believed I was right. I believed that what I was doing had to be done. And so when I approach discussions like this with you, I really do it with so much tending and so much care, because it's very easy to slip into the fire of the ego and say, she's wrong, that's wrong, right? And I can quickly gather a tribe of women who would point the finger with me. And I believe that what we're ready for as a collective is a more intelligent discussion around how do we know what's in integrity? How are we calling each other on it? What is the most productive way to do such a thing, right? Because there's a way we can do it with shame and guilt, and that actually puts the person who's getting called out further away from her integrity, And there's a shadowy reason we would do it that way, because it would bolster our ego and make us feel right, which actually moves us out of integrity too. Do you see what I mean? It's tricky, this thing. It's very tricky what we're up to. So let's just feel into where to even get a foothold in this discussion. I think the first place I want to go back to is this idea of it doesn't really hurt me, right? So as I mentioned, it does actually really hurt the person doing it, And I think one of the ways you can tell if that's happening is if you're writing something and you feel a contraction or a what would that be? It's like it's like a dreadful feeling in your system. It might be very quiet or it might be very loud, If you're looking at I used to do this. I didn't have the money to invest in somebody's class to show me how to do something. So I would, and actually many women I know have done this. So I would subscribe to someone's list, and I would just keep all the emails in their launch, right? So this is the launch sequence. And then I would take those emails and I would try to model like what they were saying and when they were leveraging and how they were doing it and what the offer was and what was the limiter, so that I could, have mine be similar. And as I would be doing that, and so let me just be clear. As I'm saying this, I'm not saying any of that is wrong. I'm not saying anything is wrong. That's the whole point of this discussion. I'm bringing forward this inquiry. It's an invitation for you to deepen into your own inquiry and to slide out from under this need to make something wrong or right, including me, right? And actually just begin to look at this. So what I would do is I would, as I was trying to model the emails and the writing, I would have this dreadful feeling that I wouldn't have changed it enough, that it would be out of alignment. Okay, I want to say it just like she did with all the same tone and flavor, but I want to make sure that there would be no question that I'm not copying this. You know what I mean? And so that feeling, right? If you're having that feeling, that's a good indication that something about the process you're engaged in is not in alignment for you. Okay. My throat is seriously on fire right now. I'm coughing up a storm. I'm just being transparent about that. Let me tune in for a minute. Maybe that's an indication that something I'm doing is not in alignment. Let me just see. Yep. Okay. So the invitation is for us to slow down. So I'm going to invite you just to tune in. Tune in to any places in your system that you're wanting to point a finger, internally or externally. And just feel it with so much compassion, just awareness, right? This is old. This is lineage and lifetimes old. We get nervous around this discussion of integrity, right? Because this is why we've been burned at the stake. This is why we've been chained in the dungeons. This is, why we've had to keep our magic a secret. Because somebody was labeling it integrous or non-integrous, And so there's this deep, deep DNA coding that has us trembling at the notion of even speaking of integrity, right? For ourselves or others. And it's very hard to find that sweet spot in the middle that's just about truth. Yeah, so let's just breathe into that. Let's breathe into the danger and the trauma in our system around this concept. Let's begin there. And thank you, Source, for such a beautiful explanation of what I was breezing through and over. Yep. So it's a perfect example. When something shows up, use it as a sign. What is happening here may not be in integrity. My system is not yet in integrity with what I'm wanting to say or where I'm wanting to go. So let me just listen. Let me see if I can get clear. Yeah. And as we tune in and love all those parts of ourselves, those cellular memories, that DNA programming, and you're going to have your own version of it, right? So some of you tend to be the more sufferers or the finger pointers or the some of you are more of the watchers in the crowd who prefer not to say something, right? But just watch it happen while you're silently deciding what side you're on. All of those. We've played all the roles. And just see in this moment if there's any part of you that would be willing to open your energetic hands and let go of the part of you that would hold on to that suffering and trauma. Just imagine that there's a receptacle right in the floor of your space. And as your cells let go of that, it can be magnetized towards the container in the floor. And let's just clear this out of your energy system as we clear it out of our collective consciousness. Yeah, so for so long as women, we have been at the mercy of those who would hold our integrity for us. Right? We didn't have the power. We didn't have the voice. Nobody was listening to us. And so we had to go underground. We had to let go of our integrous ways in so many lifetimes. We had to sell ourselves out to live, or we had to sell ourselves out and we died anyway, So all of that survival mechanism was good then, and it's good now, right? It's been good now. It's a survival mechanism. All of them are good. And they require us to revisit, to periodically revisit and say, do I still need that now? Is it possible that I could pick up the energetic reins of my own integrity now? Right? So that I don't have to let someone else be the arbiter of what I'm doing, what I should be doing, what my path is. What if it was safe to listen to myself right now? And imagine that as you entertain that question in your system, that you can imagine each of those cells that just cast off the old shadows and wounding. What if you could imagine them picking up the reins of your integrity, right? Turning it over like a brand new gift, like, yes. And I wonder how I would hold something like this. What would that look like? How would it be? What kind of a ruler would I want to be over my own space? Do I want to be a compassionate queen, a potent priestess, a loving mother? How will I hold myself in this way? Mm-hmm. Yes, and as each one of you are doing that, my soul is rejoicing. My soul is rejoicing because I don't want to be your integrity holder. I don't. It doesn't work. My soul is damaged by that feedback loop. You know, when I try to say you're doing something wrong, you know, when I try to delineate what is in integrity, what is trustable, what is right, it necessarily leaks the energy from my own experience. I actually just did this in magic school the other day. There was a way that I had been holding them and they had been reporting in on their assignments and whatnot. And I just said, my soul is tired of that. Like I'm not up for it. I'm not up for being your school marm. It's beneath my genius, and it feels like that is the invitation for each of us. So what we may do for one another is as we pick up these reins within our energetic system, what we may be doing is coming in truth to one another and saying, okay, here's this program I'm wanting to put out. Here's what I know about it. I can't seem to connect the dots. What do you see, right? What do you see in me? Does this feel in alignment? Here's this woman I follow and I really resonate with a lot of the stuff that she says and it feels like it's me. Do you feel like it's me, right? So we're getting some other eyes on it. We're getting an opinion, but we are then the final arbiter because we're the arbiter of who we're picking, right? Who we're picking to reflect to us. So, if we're not awake, we're going to pick someone who's going to jump on our side and be like, yeah, totally. No, I think that's good. You should totally put that out, right? But sometimes it's going to take asking someone a little further on the path than us, or a little smarter than us, or a little more bold than us to say, I don't think so, honey. It doesn't feel like you. It's not quite your voice. Back to the drawing board. Let's see what else is possible, and it really takes this kind of tending. This is, even in the branding that I have, when it came forward, it wasn't you have this idea that it would be like, oh my gosh, yeah, there's totally that, and here's what I want, and here's me. No, I agonize over who I am. I tend, and like it's mostly that, but it's a little not that. When the photos come out, when the website's created, each piece of that, I paid a ton of money for the custom logo, the Untamed You, and when it came, I hated it, and went through a whole process of finding integrity in my system between what it felt like to look at the logo and then, so it was like, okay, do I need to move something in my system to come into alignment with the logo, or is the logo just wrong? And so initially it was like, the logo's just wrong. So we went back to the drawing board. We created with a lot of control. That process took several months. By the end of those several months, my two friends who were working on my branding came to me and said, we need to have an intervention with you. This is your logo. This is your logo. It is your logo 10 years from now, and it's a little edgier than what you're ready for right now, but trust us, we see you, and this is it. Right? And I was pissed. Oh my God, I was pissed. I couldn't even be nice on the phone. I was just like, rah. And so I said, fine, I hear you. I'm going to go be by myself with it. And so I did. I went and was by myself with it. And I ended up knowing that they were right, even though I couldn't love it in the moment. I could feel the truth of it. And so we went with it. And now I can't imagine anything else, right? So it's that level of tending and turning over and turning over and turning over, like looking at it all the different ways, trying it on. When I'm writing my emails, it takes me a good while to write them, and I've hired various copywriters to do it for me. And, what I've discovered is I'm the only one who can express my essence in that way. It's a very particular way, and it's important for my work, So it's not easy. It's not an easy fix. It's not a 1, 2, 3, do this and you're free. It's very much about who we're becoming with each and every expression of ourselves that we put out in the world. It's about decelerating our lives such that we have time to allow our system to even register what is happening. I had a beautiful experience over the weekend where I was in the place of playing with, so I was in ceremony, and then there was an opportunity to try something else on, to add a new piece to my experience. And I could feel how in the past I would have just been like, oh yes to that piece, I'm going to do that. And yet my system was like, I don't think so. I don't know if I like it. I don't, And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to pause. I'm going to really pause. And I'm quite a spiritual warrior in ceremony space, and I tend to really go for it. So this was a different way for me to be. And I actually sat there and paused for about 45 minutes. And I started noticing all of these micro integrities in my system. Micro integrities. It was like, well, what's out of alignment, me or this medicine, right? Is it the wrong medicine, or is my system not available to the medicine? Right? Because it's like integrity really is about an agreement. It's like, I'm a yes to this part, and this thing out here is a yes to this part. And so how can those things dance? If they dance in a way that aligns, that is integrity, And so there is no one integrity for every person. Some of you could be in integrity by modeling someone else's launch system. Some of you could be in integrity by naming your program something almost identical to mine, right? Liz D'Alto, perfect example. My friend Sway, perfect example. I named my program something really similar to what she offered. She didn't love it at first either, and then she felt the integrity of it, And so it's like it's not a hard and fast rule like you have to have something brand new. It's is your system really in alignment with what is outside of you? And so as I sat there, I was noticing like, okay, there's parts of me that aren't fully available for the intention that I'm saying, right? So let me work those. So I'm just working them and I'm playing with it. Like, what if I really could have the experience I just called in? And then I'm checking in on like, okay, well, is it the medicine? What is this medicine? Is it the right thing for right now? Is it the right match? Is it And it took a long time, like a really long time. And what I started to notice is that my system actually is very complex for discerning integrity on everything. It's part of the reason I'm so sensitive to foods and smells and, things that don't feel good in my system. It's like what I woke up to was, this bigger work that I have because I've done so much internal work. I've done so much to bring my system into alignment. And now what I'm aligning with are tiny nuances, razor's edge refinements of ways that a particular motion or a particular action could have seemed in alignment, and then become out of alignment. And a perfect example is with this radio show. So, we have at this moment of the recording of this show, we have about 1,000 listens per week. And, for a while I've been looking at that and noticing, like, does it need to get bigger? Is this message meant for more people and I'm missing something by not making it bigger? Or is it really such a potent message that there are only, 1,000 women per week who are ready for it? And I've been sitting with that, and so one of the curiosities I had was, I wonder if it's not growing because I'm not available fully for letting in the reflections and adorations that would come from having, double that or triple that or, 50,000 people listening each week. Is that what's in the way? So I thought that was what was in the way because I'm not great at receiving love and adoration. So when I went into ceremony, I started to have that inquiry, and I was looking at, let me just rephrase that. It's not that I'm not good at it. I have in the past not been good at it. I am getting better and better at it, and it's still a growing edge for me. That's more in integrity. So as I started to look at it, it was like, I was kind of getting some guidance from outside of me, like, yeah, you should let in adoration, like let it in. And it felt a little like, forced on my system. And so I was trying to play with, like, I had a little shame in my system, like that I'm not already open to more adoration and what's wrong with me. These people want to adore me and I'm not letting it happen. And this was all fast, right? Fast undercurrents. But as I started to slow it down, this is what I was noticing. So then I started playing with, okay, great. So let me feel, is there a way that I can let adoration happen in my system? So I tried it on a lot of different ways. And then I noticed, okay, one of the ways I could do it is if I feel what the other person is feeling. So if, this woman wants to adore what I'm offering, I can feel how good it feels to her to adore me. And so that's a way that I'm kind of letting it in and having an experience of it. So that's good. And then with some women, it's not completely pure because while adoring me, they're also handing me their power. And that was a huge red flag in my system, because I've been down that road many lifetimes. And so it was like, okay, yes. So I created this whole distillery system in my energetic system. So like, okay, they'll adore me, but if it's not perfect or pure, then that'll get, distilled out, but at least the adoration's still getting to me. So I'm like doing what other people should do or what works for other people. I'm not saying that adoration should never be let in. I'm just saying for me and the place that I'm holding this lifetime and the work that I'm up to, this makes me emotional as I'm saying it because that feels true. It's like I have to be the master of my universe. And so for me, that's not actually in alignment. And how I knew is because the next morning, Viv and I were talking and, and she was saying, okay, great, let's try on the radio show then. So now you've got this, distillation equipment and, what if there's 5,000 people listening? And instantly I was like, oh no, that's way too many. That will take so much energy to hold the distillation of all of the projections and the power that would be coming to me with that adoration. There's no way my system would be able to hold that or would want to hold that. It's not clean. So we drop in for more exploration, right? Do you see what I mean? Like this is the level of tending that is being required with this work we're doing. And so as we dropped in, what we noticed is if I allow the adoration in for the radio show, what that actually does is it creates a loop between me and the listeners. And so my ego gets a giant shot of heroin of like, oh, they loved me. They really loved me. And then next week I come and I feel like I owe them something. So then I stop showing up in essence because I want to give them the thing that they wanted, right? And it makes it harder to do that because now it's convoluted. And then it's this loop, right? Which is leaking energy from them because they're handing me their power and leaking energy from me because I'm trying to give them what they're wanting. And it was very disconcerting. So we went back to the drawing board. She said, why are you doing the radio show? And I said, I'm doing the radio show for myself. This is my place every week to lay my ego down. to say the things that are edgy, to keep myself in check, right? Coming in here today with this as the topic, I could feel how my ego wanted to bring the sword and cut her head off. I've done that. I've done that probably to her in many lifetimes, because we certainly have some soul contracts together. And I could feel how convenient it would be. And so I come here, in that messiness without it figured out, coughing my head off. So I have to pause in the middle of my own show to do something that actually puts me more in alignment. That's why I do it. I don't actually do it for anyone else. And so, in fact, creating some feedback loop with other people takes me away from that purpose. I need the buffer. I need to not actually know that you adore it. Little bits here and there, like I've been getting, are great. So I know, that it's doing something. But in general, I need to have this buffer where it's just me and my essence is going out, right? So I have room to just expand into the fullness of who I am. And when we looked at what does that do then, right? It's not about adoration at all. It's about impact. It's about essence equals impact. And so we could see, like, instantaneously, it went from 1,000 listeners to 100,000 listeners. And some people were getting it on a very deep level, and some people it was going over their heads, and some people it was kind of just touching them. And it's not about that, right? So you can see how it's this integrity is very specific. And especially when we talk about essence and our essence exchanging with the world, there's nothing more particular than that, because it's like your essence is its own fingerprint, and nobody will meet the world in the same way that you meet the world. For some people who are teaching about something else, that adoration loop might actually be what they're here to do. And for me, it's not. It's not. And so the only way for me to do that, to get to that knowing for myself, is to keep tending and tending and tending and feeling the places that are not in alignment and becoming curious about those places that aren't in alignment and loving myself and having trusted advisors to reflect to me and going back again, right? Being willing to make a mistake, being willing to not get it right, being willing to just keep showing up while I'm tending in my truth. This is what I know right now. This is what I know right now. It's very possible in 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 hours, I'll come back and say, oh, I had that totally wrong. Yeah. That's the work we're up to, ladies. That's what we've signed up for this time. So, as you pick up the reins of holding your own integrity, I wonder if there's a way that you can do it so that it doesn't feel like life or death. It's a little bit like the Michael Jordan quote where he says, he's missed the game-winning shot however many thousands of times, because it's not about crossing some finish line. It's not about there being some perfect path and you not getting it. The fact that you're putting yourself on this path, that you're listening to this talk right now, that you're willing to stand here and open yourself to this inquiry with your knees knocking and your heart pitter-pattering, that is integrity, sisters. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. It's a willingness to keep going in and saying, and what else? And what else? And it's a willingness to go in and sometimes say, enough. Enough. For now, this is good. That is also integrity. And I had, let me just see if I want to share that. Yeah, I had an experience of that also this weekend. It was at the very end of the ceremony, which had been so beautiful. And this is the work I'd been tending, right? Integrity the whole time. And at the very end, I shared something really vulnerable between me and a woman who was there, and it felt poignant and perfect. And she and I have been on a really long walk together, and the shaman piped in with something that I specifically had asked her not to address in the group in a specific way that was completely out of alignment with what I was saying and what I was needing and what the group was needing at the moment. And So I opened because the part of me was like, well, I should open. And I know I have this tendency to, think that I'm right or to be, overly one way or another. So I let her begin speaking, and I could feel it leaking the energy from me, and I could feel it leaking the energy from the group. And then a fiery ember from my soul just took hold and burned right up through me and out my mouth. And I just said, enough. That's it. That's not for me. That's not mine. It's not for me. Not now. And that actually went into a pretty long, fiery speech about, that as evolutionaries, we can always be picking. We can always be looking for what else is out of alignment. What is the shadow here? How can I be better? How can I do better? Right? And we can become paralyzed by that. And so that also is a dance where, yes, we know there's more. There's always more. Could there be truth in what she was saying? Absolutely. Did I want it or need it right then? I did not. And as the integrity holder for my own experience and my own soul, it requires me to be a fierce stand for myself at all times. At all times. No one else can do that for me. It would have had a completely different impact. It would have been very messy if anybody else would have said it. And so I did. I did say it. And she also is fiercely integrous, and she didn't love it. She didn't love that I said it. And also she then took that information and went internal into her own integrity to check and see, was I out of integrity? I don't think that I was. I don't know, blah, 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 right? And so I don't know where she sits with it in this moment, but we have an agreement to come back and check with each other in a week and see what has transpired and what is moving around it. And that's what I mean, right? Like when we start hanging with people who can do that, where I don't hold any responsibility for your well-being, but I'll show up and be me, and our essences will play and some things will happen, And I think sometimes we have this idea that, being an essence means it's all going to be kumbaya. And sometimes the most beautiful essence growth occurs when, your essence bumps up against someone else's in these tiny nuanced ways. And it's such an invitation for refinement. Refinement, refinement, refinement. Yeah. So with that, I feel like I do want to circle back around and answer the question. This idea of who's hurt by a little plagiarism here and there, a little usage of some key phrases, a little, whatever. Who's really hurt by that? So we've covered the woman doing it is hurt because when you're doing it, your system doesn't feel good. It's not growing. You've missed an opportunity for your essence to move more forward. It certainly might feel easier in a moment to do that than it might be to actually take a deep look at the shadowy parts of yourself. But you're going to be so much better off by doing the latter, right? Yep. Let me just take a drink. The other people who are hurt by that are the women who are supposed to be working with you and walking with you. If you're offering something that isn't you, all the people that you contracted with before you came here to do very specific things, they have to wait. They have to wait. So, there's that. And the final question, I really sat with this because I felt like, am I actually hurt by it? If someone takes my words, am I really hurt by that? Because if I'm essence and I'm not woundable, is it really just my ego that's having a reaction, And that might be true. But what I feel right now, the truest piece I can discern right now is that there is damage, not to me as a soul, but there's damage to the potency of the work, right? So, when I offer an email or a set of words or a radio show or a dynamic concept that's alive in and through me from my guides, for my soul, for my listeners, and that is released into the world, and then someone takes those words and starts offering them as if they are theirs. what it does is it actually leaks the potency of the words, right? It's what happened to the concept of priestess. So, I think some actual priestesses began offering it, began showing it up in the world, goddess the same. And then a lot of people started taking those words and using them in ways that weren't sacred and weren't in alignment. Hold on. Man, integrity takes time and patience. Taking a breath. So let me see if that's true. Yeah. Yeah, it makes those things harder to hear, right? They lose the magic of the vibration they came in with. And so I guess you could say in a way that hurts us all. That hurts us all when you start leaking the energy from something really magic. Maybe there's another word. Maybe it's not, it hurts us. Let's see. Let's feel into it together, actually. Okay. Yeah, so the word I'm getting is actually perpetuates. So it perpetuates this old cycle of secrecy and, what is that? It's like, it's like it perpetuates secrecy and that undercurrent of wrongness, of like, if you're putting work out in the world that has an undercurrent of, I did something wrong, right? That actually flows through the crystalline grid of every interaction of any woman who would sign up for that, So there's that, right? It's that thing that we just cleared in ourselves. And so when that occurs, I guess the invitation is to love the impulse. And then we are going to have to consciously tend this because it's deep. It's deep and there's so many layers of it. So I think, what I'd love to do as we prepare to part here is I'd love to invite us. I wonder if there's some language we could come up with that would be like, an easy, gentle way to reflect to someone that you're seeing something that might need some tending without any shaming or, something that would have them go into more hiding, right? Let me just see if we can come up with something. Yeah, so I think it's on both ends. So one invitation is as you're offering work in the world, to be saying, I would love your reflection around whether this iteration feels like it's a match to my essence as it currently exists, right? Does this feel like me, like you're sitting down with me, how you know me, how you see me, who you experience me as? I'd love your reflection around that, and it occurs to me the tribe is a great place for us to begin doing that with each other. Again, because even the presentation of that, it's not about marketing, because we've had some women who've tried to do that in there where it's like, hey, here's my new program. And can't you feel it even when they do that? And then there's some back end way where they acted like it wasn't about them, but it totally is. Everyone knows that. We always, always do. So there's a way that you can really put yourself out for the actual feedback on your essence rather than pretending like it's feedback so you can get someone in your class, right? So in that way, we're even practicing exchanging as essence, right? Exchanging as essence. My essence would be filled just by getting the feedback. And it's not about, do you pay for my class, right? So let's do that for sure. If you're not in the tribe, it's facebook.com/groups/Wild Soul Medicine Radio Tribe. And yeah, and then how do we give feedback? How do we give feedback in a way that's not shaming? Let me just feel if I have any words for us. I always like the both and approach, right? So it's like, here's where I see your essence, and here's where I would like to feel more of your essence. It can just be as simple as that. And you won't always have the answer because you don't know her essence. So you might have some curiosities, or you might have a direction, and then she's going to have to go back and get to know herself even more, free herself even more, call herself forward, right? That actually feels like the shift. It's no longer about calling each other out, right? Because when I say you're not in essence, that doesn't invite your essence forward. It actually has her retreat, And so it's really about, we're holding this space, and the invitation is for you to call yourself more forward. And we'll be waiting here with so much love and adoration with every trepidatious step that you take. And so, my sisters, I once again am in total awe and gratitude for the space that you hold, for being willing to come and listen and be surprised and freed right along with me. And so, until next time, so much love to you. Bye for now.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination, for God's sake. A revelation, for God's sake. An inspiration, for God's sake. Illumination, for God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake.